Carbon scoring started out as a hobby, a side hustle, but it has quickly grown into so much more than that. We've developed a community, and we are rapidly becoming a family. Let me show you how.
Carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics history and action figures. As my loyal viewers know, it's the summer of Spidey, and we've been celebrating everybody's favorite webhead by going through Spider-Man's immense action figure history. But when you do that, you realize there's still some substantial gaps of characters that haven't been created in action figure form. So as I was reviewing the Steve Ditko era, I found myself saying this. I read issue 25 as a reprint in Marvel Tales when I was 10 years old, and this offbeat story has stuck with me ever since. While I think it's unlikely, I would pay a HasLab level price to get a Spider Slayer with old JJ's smiling mug on it. If anybody knows a customizer up to the challenge, hit me up in the comments. Well, my prayers were answered when this beautiful, perfect custom Spider Slayer showed up on my doorstep this week. But before we take a look at that, and thank the creator and Carbon Scoring viewer who sent it to us, let's dive into why this particular issue still resonates almost 60 years later. Issue 25 of The Amazing Spider-Man is one of the most tightly plotted, best written issues of the entire series. It's almost like a Pixar film. Every single panel has a specific purpose, and they all tie back together in the end. This issue manages to involve virtually Spidey's entire cast. After a study date with Liz Allen, Pete stops by a rooftop to pick up one of his spider tracers when he notices some shady-looking characters. Needing to make a buck, he snaps some pictures while using his spider signal to alert a police officer and lead him to the crooks. Before heading to the Bugle, he swings by Aunt May's house to work on sewing a spare costume. When he arrives, we see old JJ talking to someone who looks suspiciously like Norman Osborn, just a little Ditko Easter egg. Jonah rejects the pics at first, but desperate for some dough, Pete convinces him that these photos make Spidey look bad, as he was beaten to the scene by a lone cop. Betty Brant is not happy that Pete would sell the webhead out like that. But before Pete could explain, inventor Spencer Smythe shows up with a contraption guaranteed to catch Spider-Man. JJ's skeptical, but Pete senses a chance to humiliate his boss and eggs him on to give it a try, despite Betty's protests. Pete's overconfidence backfires as the machine, set to sense and attack a spider's presence, captures Pete instead. Peter realizes his spider strength is no match for the coils, and he leaves dejected, wondering what a fine mess he's gotten himself into now. Things don't get any better when he arrives back at school. Flash Thompson sees him with Liz and tells Pete to meet him after class. Meanwhile, JJ's getting set up to control the robot, and Flash is still making threats. But things go from bad to worse when Peter sees the robot coming for him and tries to make a hasty exit. This is when it gets bananas. Flash and his gang start chasing Peter, who's trying to use them to run interference between himself and the Jonah bot. He manages to get enough separation to almost change into costume, but that smiling mug is bearing down on him. Spidey tries to escape over the rooftops, but he can't get away. So he makes a stand, and when his webs don't work, well, let's just say the old Parker luck is in full effect. It's becoming inevitable. The Jonah bot is eventually going to catch Spidey. Meanwhile, Betty sets off for Pete's house, where she's met by Liz. After a frosty conversation, Aunt May informs them that they weren't the only ladies paying Peter a visit today. They are both flabbergasted when they see the new girl on the scene. Here she is, the very first appearance of Mary Jane Watson. Who knows where Ditko would have taken this had he stayed on the title. So while Pete's love life just became infinitely more complicated, things weren't going great in costume either. Jonah's robot captured Spidey, and again he realized his strength was no match for this hunk of metal. As with the best of Spidey stories, It was his brains that were going to have to save the day. He used his ability to stick to any surface to remove the control plate. I always loved how Ditko made his fingers look like suction cups in this panel. But he was running out of time, as Jonah was on his way to capture his prize. When Smythe and Jameson arrive on the rooftop, they find Spidey still struggling to free himself from the robot's clutches. But when Jonah goes to unmask his foe, he's in for a surprise. Pete had managed to free himself and was watching with glee as old JJ realized he had been duped again. And Spidey ended up with the happy ending. Oh, come on. Have you never read a Spidey comic before? Of course that's not how it ended. When Pete arrives home, he's confronted by Aunt May holding the costume he had been working on. Not wanting to lie to his beloved aunt, Peter spins some half-truths and even rolls up his sleeves, revealing no hidden costume, since he had just left his to fool Jonah. These 22 pages packed an incredible amount of story in, making it a Spidey classic. A book this good deserves a figure this good. So leave it to carbon scoring viewer Martin Dallard to produce this incredible custom J. Jonah Jameson Spider Slayer. Martin hails from Eversham, England, and as you can clearly see, he is a master of metallurgy, as well as being a huge Spidey fan. His work includes wall hangings, mask replicas, and even 3D dioramas. His skills were uniquely suited to the task at hand, combining his love of comics with his artistic acumen. Let me tell you, this thing is solid, forged from steel, so it really translates into that retro robot vibe that the book had. But the springing coils provide a sense of movement and action. All the details are present, from the center plate Spidey removes to defeat it, to the ribbed limbs. But it's that J. Jonah Jameson head that is the literal icing on the cake, and it perfectly captures the comic look. You can find Martin's contact information in the description. I can't recommend his work enough. It's beautiful. Custom or not, this is still a toy. We need to start playing with it. Hey, you didn't think you were getting out of this without some comic art recreations, did you? Recreating scenes from the comics is rapidly becoming one of my favorite things that we do on this channel. And having the opportunity to use a one-of-a-kind custom action figure is a dream. By issue 25, Steve Ditko was in his stride on the title, and his kinetic depiction of Spider-Man is so clear in these panels. He created an entire visual language for the way Spidey looks and moves, and his depictions of the rooftops of New York City had such a grimy, visceral feel, one that future artists such as Frank Miller would seize upon and use as an additional character in their comics. So let's welcome Martin Dallard to the carbon scoring family with highest honors, and please check out his other work. Plus, give us a like and hit the subscribe and notification bell buttons so that you can stay up to date with all the goodness coming from carbon scoring.